economics professor Stephen Moore. Stephen, how are you?
Hi, Larry. Hey, thanks for having me. By the way, I want to respond to the non sequitur by Mayor Pete, because he said in that quote, well, gee, people living on the minimum wage can't buy a two-bedroom apartment. The vast majority of people making the minimum wage are teenage and young workers. It's a starter job. It was never meant to be for a head of household, and the vast majority of heads of households in Americans who are the major bread earner do not earn the minimum wage. So and I think Mayor Pete is smart enough to understand that, but they're using this as kind of political propaganda. And, I'm saying, and all you do with the minimum wage, by the way, you're exactly right about the job losses. The people who lose their jobs are the least skilled and young people. I always tell people, I have two teenagers who I love very much, but I don't think I would ever pay them $14 an hour.
I was just looking at a column I wrote some years ago, Stephen, about Jonathan Gruber and Paul Krugman, two of the most prominent economists in the country. Yes. And both of them wrote negatively about a minimum wage some years ago. Both of them talked about how it destroys jobs. Now, Krugman has done a 180 because of that Card-Kruger study that has been pretty much, in my opinion, rendered not credible by most people that tried to replicate the results. But he has done a 180. But back in the day, he wrote books and said that when you have a minimum wage hike, it destroys jobs.
Well, look, the other thing about the minimum wage is that because we have a booming economy right now, look, you and I and everyone wants high-wage workers. I want American workers to be the highest paid in the world, and we are achieving that by, through our tax cuts, through a very tight labor market. You saw that Taco Bell is now paying $100,000 a year for their managers. Mm-hmm. Those are people, in many cases, who started out flipping burgers or, rolling tacos, and now they're making, big bucks. And you do a lot of disservice to young people and people starting out their careers if you take away the minimum wage jobs. I don't know about you, Larry, but I remember my first job. I was working at a warehouse, stocking packages, and I made $2.10 an hour. But, boy, I learned a lot on that job. It was the first job I ever had.
You made that much money? White privilege.
$2.10? I'm older than you think.
Let me give you a quote. You tell me who said it, Stephen Moore. Quote, "The living wage movement is simply a move to raise minimum wages through local action. So what are the effects of increasing minimum wages? Any Econ 101 student can tell you the answer. The higher wage reduces the quantity of labor demanded and hence leads to unemployment," end of quote.
Oh, that's so true. And by the way,
the question, Stephen Moore, was whom do you think said that?
Oh, actually, I thought that was you. Who did say it?
Paul Krugman, 1998. Oops.
You tricked me.
He even dismissed that Card-Kruger study and said in controlled experiments, the positive effects of minimum wage were not replicated.
Well, look, Paul Krugman is also the one who said that if Donald Trump was elected president, he'd cause a stock market depression that would last for, a decade, and we have the best stock market ever. But I do want to address that issue that you brought up, Larry, about this study that says raising the minimum wage raises the number of people who commit suicide. And I had exactly the same reaction that you did. I guess great minds think alike. Mm-hmm. How could this possibly be true when we know one of the major causes of suicide is when people lose their jobs and don't have employment and feel worthless? And so we know you connect that very well. You raise the minimum wage, many people lose their jobs, and when people lose their jobs, they're more likely to commit suicide. So how in the world can raising the minimum wage reduce suicide? I mean, there's another non sequitur for it.
Mm-hmm. I'll give you another quote, Stephen Moore. This time I'll tell you who said it ahead of time. This is Jonathan Gruber, the father of Obamacare. Quote, "Let's say the government rolled in and set a minimum wage. Workers want to supply more hours than firms want to hire. You end up with excess supply, and we call that excess supply unemployment," end of quote. The father of Obamacare. Yeah.
Is that the guy at MIT?
Yeah, MIT. Jonathan Gruber.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, these guys have, they've sacrificed their economic principles to be politically correct. But, look, we've got an economy that's doing well right now. Wages are going up. I'm the one who wrote in the Wall Street Journal a month ago. I looked at the Census Bureau data. Average family, median families in the United States, median income, that means half are above and half are below. I'm not talking about, Tom Brady and LeBron James, and I'm not talking about, Warren Buffett. Median family income over the last 3 years is up $5,000 in real terms. That's a big. Nancy Pelosi may think that's crumbs, but that ain't crumbs for a lot of families.
My guest is economic professor Stephen Moore. Stephen, let's talk about the trade deal with China and the USMCA. We only have a minute left.
Yeah, I love it. I think with the China trade deal, you and I have had discussions about this before. You were skeptical that Trump could pull this off, and I was skeptical too. But you got to admit this is a pretty good deal. Trump has used these tariffs to force China to lower their tariffs and open up their markets. They're going to buy $200 billion more of our product if they abide by the deal. That's a pretty good deal, I think, and I think Trump's the big winner here.
What about intellectual property theft?
Well, there's some provisions in there where China has promised to do something about it. But, Larry, I don't believe them for 1 minute.